Good morning, Americans. This is your favorite alien speaking on Sunday, May 12th, Mother's Day. Oh, good. Wow, me and Bubba says Happy Mother's Day to all your mothers over there. And especially the favorite mothers, everybody. The mother in law. Well, I'm sorry you don't have a good day for you, but to your mother in laws, whether you're Munster in laws or mother in laws, I say Happy Mother's Day from your favorite alien. But today I wanted to do a video and make it a little funny and get off the political stuff for a while and say how, what, or who became us? Okay, how do we become us? Meaning the U.S. So that way you know, and it's kind of comical in a way, so that you know how you became us. So here it goes. It all started, with Queen Elizabeth and Sir Walter Raleigh. Queen Elizabeth the First, that is. Back in 1580, around there, where they looked at you know, the world, and Spain and Portugal were ruling everything, to the west side anyway, which they were. Uh, the French, they hadn't started anything yet. The Portuguese, on the other hand, they were already in India. They were, how would you say, cheated by the Pope back in 1520. So all they got was Portugal and the Western Hemisphere. Poor guys. As you notice, you get swindled. So uh, Sir Walter Raleigh decided to, okay, let's take the northern part of the continent. Nobody's there except for the local Indians, and who cares about them, right? Well, yeah. So in 1587, he formed a colony, got a governor named White and his daughter, and then, Virginia Dare came into being, and they formed the colony of Virginia for Elizabeth because she was virgin. So they called her the Virgin King's Queen, so that's why it's Virginia. And that's why you guys in Virginia are Virginia. Except for you guys who later became another state, which is a different story of West Virginia, you guys are saved because remember, you have to go through God to get you guys over at West by God, Virginia. So you guys are the only saved guys on the planet that I know. Anyway, that's a different story. But here we go. So Sir Walter Raleigh went there in 1587. Didn't come back to 1590 because of the Spanish Armada. By the time they came back, everybody was gone there. They didn't leave a note or anything, or just Krakatoa. That's all they left. So, and even today they're still trying to find them. Well, they forgot about that till 1607 when Queen Elizabeth's successor, James I, he says, hey, if I form colonies over there, I can get some money because he liked to live high on the hog. And unfortunately, he was going through the British Treasury as fast as your wife goes through over to, where is that? Macy's, I guess. So you guys know about your wives and Macy's, right? Anyway, so he was going through the Treasury as long as your wife was going over to Macy's. So in 1607, they formed Virginia. 1620, they formed Massachusetts Bay Colony, or Plymouth Colony. Later on, then they formed Massachusetts in the 1630s. Then you had the Tom, Dick, and Harry's who wanted their spot there too. The king didn't like that, but he needed the money, so he told them, "Okay, you pay me X amount of money, and you can go over there." And I'm talking about Roger Williams over in Maryland. Oh boy, Catholics in America. Sorry about that. Then you had William Penn later on in the century over there in Pennsylvania. That's why it's Pennsylvania, because of William Penn. You had Rhode Island, Connecticut, you know, uh, and by the early 18th century, you had it all set. But then you had the Spanish still around, controlling Florida and the West. So here, 1730, they decided, hey, we need a colony, so we'll establish Since George II was the king at the time, we call it Georgia. So they established Savannah and became Georgia. Uh, then we got Jimmy Who a few centuries later. Oh, sorry about that. Anyway, so that's the way that went. 1763, the French had already gone around and colonized, French Canada, but they lost a few stuff, and well, they had to give up the Northwest Territory, which the British had. Well, they just incorporated with the colonies and said, hey, North Carolina and Georgia, you can extend all the way up to the Mississippi. Pennsylvania, you can do the same thing too. New York, well, you got the wilderness over there, so you can extend that too. They did that. Unbeknownst to what's it going to cost you. Well, after the Revolutionary War and up until the close of the 18th century, they did have that. But in the 18th century, uh, Thomas Jefferson got swindled because he wanted the port of New Orleans, which was controlled by Napoleon at the time, and Napoleon needed money, just like King James I needed money. So he gave him $15 million, and he says, "Oh, you can have the Louisiana Purchase too." Bad move. So they started, getting a lot of territory there. Also, the Texans decided to, the Americans decided to illegal immigrate to Texas. So, you had illegal immigrations in Texas in the 1820s. And by 1836, they decided, hey, our grandfathers did it over there, so let's do it over here and form Texas. So they did. But then they accumulated a debt of about $10 million. Help! Can you guys take us over and take our debt, please? So they did, and they became the state of Texas. So there you had it. In 1853, you had a guy named Gadsden who liked a little piece that you didn't get from Mexico, so you got it, and it became the Gadsden Purchase. And then in 1867, you had a guy named Seward, which was Secretary of State under Lincoln. And it was Seward's probably, but the king of their Tsar of Russia at the time, Alexander II, the Russians called him Bad Boy because he gave up Alaska. And to this day, I bet you Putin still wants Alaska back because that was a bad deal for the Russians. A swindle for the U.S., although they call it Seward's folly. So you see, Americans, therefore, that's how you got to be who you are. And of course, there was every Tom, Dick, and Harry in there. And you weren't satisfied, and you let every Tom, Dick, and Harry come in. So this is how we became us. And this is how us is us. This is your favorite alien saying, see you later. Bye.